and on voting rights.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer previewed the plans in a letter to his colleagues, including an effort to take up voting rights as early as this week. Schumer also said the Senate will move early this year to votes related to Democrats' partisan spending measure, aka the Build Back Better Act. The legislation lost a key vote from West Virginia moderate Senator Joe Manchin before the holidays, dooming its prospects. But Schumer said he wants every member to get their say on the legislation with a planned vote, putting their positions on the record. If Republicans block the moves, Schumer says he wants the Senate to debate filibuster rules that would limit such efforts in the evenly divided chamber. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, Washington.
Winter storm warnings are posted in both eastern and western states. Heavy snow is falling from Washington state south to California. In the east, snow is falling from Georgia up to New York. The National Weather Service confirms that at least 7 tornadoes touched down in Kentucky on New Year's Day. From member station WUKY, Karen Czar reports that a fresh state of emergency has been declared in Kentucky because of storm damage.
Gary Fritz was watching his beloved Kentucky Wildcats play in the Citrus Bowl on Saturday when an emergency broadcast system signal came on. He says he thought it was just a test until he turned down the TV. He heard the wind and looked out the back window.
I saw my wife's, she calls it her she shed, being pushed off of the foundation. And I said, we better get to the basement.
Fritz says the funnel cloud came through so quickly he and his wife barely had time to take shelter. The home was spared, but the barns on their cattle farm are destroyed. More than a dozen counties in Kentucky were hit by severe weather on Saturday. No fatalities or injuries have been reported. For NPR News, I'm Karen Czar in Union City, Kentucky.
Classes resumed today for some students in Oxford, Michigan. Town schools mostly shut down a month ago after a mass shooting left 4 students dead and several other people wounded. From member station WDET, Quinn Kleinfelter has more.
Oxford High School remains closed, as it has since 15-year-old Ethan Crumbly allegedly went on a killing spree there. But elementary and middle school is back in session. They briefly opened last month, then shut down following threats posted on social media. Now extra security and counseling is in place. School officials also face a lawsuit charging they should have never let Crumbly return to class the day of the shooting.
Quinn Kleinfelter reporting. This is NPR.
The time is now 4 minutes after 9. This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. The Broward Health Hospital System admitted over the weekend it had suffered a data breach back in October. A statement from the hospital said the hacker accessed personal and medical records of patients and staff that included banking information and Social Security and driver's license numbers, among other things. Hospital officials say they are not saying how many people's files were hacked, although they do say there's no evidence the data was, quote, actually misused. Miami Beach plans to reopen the Ocean Drive Strip to vehicle traffic after nearly 2 years of being pedestrian only. Danny Rivero has details.
The city of Miami Beach closed the iconic Ocean Drive Strip to cars in the early stages of the COVID pandemic, in part to help cafes and restaurants open up more outdoor seating. And since then, it's been a haven for cyclists, dog walkers, and people watchers. But now, the city's planning to bring cars back to the strip in late January. It'll only have a southbound lane, and 2 bicycle lanes will still take up part of the street. Lawsuits filed against Miami Beach by several hotels and bars along the strip argue that closing the street to cars makes it more difficult for guests to access the properties. In the coming months, the City Commission plans to revisit the idea of making Ocean Drive carless once again, and possibly make it permanent. I'm Danny Rivero in Miami.
And our temperature's still taking a little slide this morning. We're down to 52 degrees. Windy in Jacksonville. Wind advisory until noon today.
Support for NPR comes from iDrive, providing cloud backup, full system backup, and on-site iDrive appliance to protect PCs, Macs, and servers from data loss due to crashes and ransomware at iDrive.com/NPR. And Americans for the Arts.
From Omicron to local elections, downtown Jacksonville to Tallahassee, 2022 is already shaping up to be an eventful year. This morning, a look at what you can expect. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross, and this is First Coast Connect. Thanks for listening, and Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a nice holiday with your loved ones. We are turning the page and kicking off a new 12 months on the show this morning with a look at some of the biggest stories we'll be following this year. Join us. Yes, the lines are open once again. Give us a call right now. It's 549-2937. Then later, the Jaguars lose again, this time to the Patriots. And fans call for the team's GM to be fired. All of that and more ahead this hour, including a new report on election security in these United States. But first this hour, we're beginning the new year by looking ahead to what 2022 has in store for us here on the First Coast and beyond. And we're welcoming three All-Stars, three of our valued Jacksonville Today contributors. Columnist Nikisha Williams. Hey, Nikisha, Happy New Year.
Good morning, Melissa. Happy New Year.
A.G. Gankarski of Florida Politics and Jacksonville Today. Hey, A.G.
Good morning, Melissa.
And Bill Delaney of our partner, The Jackson. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Happy New Year, Melissa.
Happy New Year to all three of you. Thanks so much for being with us. And folks, yes, we're back this morning and we're looking ahead to the biggest stories and trends for the new year. What are your questions about what's going to be happening locally and around Florida, whether it has to do with downtown development, state or local politics, how schools and businesses are going to manage this Omicron variant? Give us a call now. It's 549-2937. Already getting your emails, send them to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org and tweets to @MelissaInJax. Our Facebook page, always open too. Okay, guys, a lot going on, and there's so much to get into. Where to begin? Nikisha Williams, let's begin with you. You know, I almost hesitate to bring this up because one thing our listeners have told us is that they are sick and tired of hearing about the pandemic. Unfortunately, Nikisha, we do have to talk about it because it's still with us. This variant, the Omicron variant, is flashing through the state. School goes back tomorrow in Duval County. And so as people head back to work and school, what do you think they should be considering?
For everyone that's sick of hearing about the pandemic, I think we can all agree that we're equally as tired of living through the pandemic.
Yes, we are.
But it's still here. And so as people get ready to head back to school and work and endure a third unknown year of pandemic living, the only thing that I can suggest is, do everything that you can to protect yourself. Like, this is not about liberty. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. Do everything that you possibly can to protect yourself and your family as we continue through this uncertainty with the Omicron variant surging across the country, especially through Florida. And if you do everything to protect yourself, then we can eventually see the other side of pandemic living. That's the only thing that I can suggest.
That is obviously what we all want. A.G. Gankarski, whether you are a strong proponent of vaccinations and masking and all of the protocols that go with it, or whether you've been someone who has vociferously resisted them, we are all so tired of this. And so, but this is something that, you think of a new year, you think of a turning of the page, and there's an incredible frustration and weariness out there because we are not able to do that. And, if we had reached that herd immunity of vaccination rates of, say, 70%, we would likely be mostly done with this, but we're just not there. We're at about a little over 60% here in Florida.
Yeah, I think it's about 65%. And the virus has changed over the last 2 years. I mean, our understanding of the virus has changed. Our treatments have changed. Omicron's a different variant than Delta than the variants before, and so on. And it seems to be that the bet is being made by policymakers, Republicans and Democrats alike, that this is an endemic virus now. That Omicron is, less severe than previous variants. And it feels like the foot is coming off the gas both on the federal level and the state level. I mean, Joe Biden said there wasn't a federal solution to COVID-19. Well, Joe Biden ran as a zero COVID presidential candidate. So there's no federal solution now a year in. And obviously Ron DeSantis has taken a more hands-off approach to the virus and to mitigation strategies than many would have liked. And that's something we've discussed many times in this program. But, the real issue here is that federal money is running out. The printing press that Donald Trump turned on in 2020, that Joe Biden turned on in 2021, that's not there anymore. So you can't pay people to stay home from work. You can't pay businesses to shut down. So what's happening now is basically people are having to lean into the virus a little bit more than they would like because, there was an X amount of money for mitigation strategies, and that seems to be running out. Now everybody's waiting for the White House to send tests to houses. But
and don't we need those? Over the weekend, a number of folks I know, AG, were scouring this town for a test and could not find one anywhere. Good luck getting one. And of course, the governor came under heavy fire over the last week for not having any state-run testing sites, although major cities have them, lines for hours at some of them in the southern part of the state. But okay, so Bill Delaney at the Jackson Mag, as AG mentioned, those payments to families ended at the end of December. You've been tracking, though, at the Jackson, how the passage of the infrastructure bill, which is going to result in a lot of money flowing to this area, how that's going to work for Jacksonville. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's billions of dollars in this new infrastructure bill. And this is the bipartisan bill, the one that actually passed. There's billions of dollars for roads, rail, all sorts of infrastructure needs, and Jacksonville stands positioned, if we can get on the ball, to really reap a huge benefit. There's a couple of things to watch out for. A huge one that I think is probably off a lot of people's radar is the expansion of Amtrak. Amtrak is doubling the number of trains that are going to be between Jacksonville and Tampa. And so not only will you be able to get to Tampa 4 times a day instead of 2, you'll be able to go to every stop along that way. So Winter Park, Orlando, Polk County, etc. It's a perfect opportunity for Jacksonville because we've been talking for 30 years now about moving the Amtrak station from where it is now in Northwest Jacksonville in the middle of an industrial area back downtown where our historic station was. So it's the kind of thing that we can do. The feds are coming with this money. They're planning to expand Amtrak. Jacksonville just needs to get on the ball with that one.
Let's hope so. Wouldn't that be something to celebrate? If you're just tuning in, it's our first show of the new year. I'm Melissa Ross. We're speaking with our Jacksonville Today contributors, Nikisha Williams, A.G. Gankarski, and Bill Delaney, about the biggest trends and stories we expect for 2022. Give us a call. It's 549-2937. Okay, Nikisha Williams, in a very short time, legislators will go to Tallahassee for their session. You'll be tracking a number of pieces of legislation, including probably the most controversial bill, the Stop Woke Act, as it's called. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So this was a piece a few weeks ago in the Jax Today newsletter. And basically, it's, in my opinion, a way to rewrite history, to prevent schools and other educational centers from teaching students about the impact of the history of slavery in the country and in Florida specifically. And the reasoning behind this, as I loosely gather from the absentee governor, is about not making current generations feel bad for what their ancestors did, but in allowing such complacency, you are also not acknowledging the systemic issues that are still happening today to descendants of other ancestors who had to endure those atrocities. And so this has come about all from the 1619 Project from the New York Times that was released 3 years ago. and has continued to be to expand in literary circles, from the New York Times to now to books that have come out. And so in rewriting history and not acknowledging prior history, we're not getting to the heart of what ran the country for years. Slavery was an economic driver, and out of slavery and Reconstruction and Jim Crow, the systems that were put in place are still there. So to tell children or to not tell children that these are factors as to why things are systemically the way they are today is problematic. So I'll be looking at that. I doubt that it passes, but stranger things have happened in Florida.
Let us know your thoughts on the governor's attack on wokeism, I guess is the best way to put it. 549-2937. As we look ahead to stories and trends we expect to dominate the discussion in 2022. A.G. Gankarski, you've been writing about the governor. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that Stop Woke Act, it's actually fairly limited. It was a good media peg for him, but it allows people to bring causes of action against school districts if they don't like what they're hearing, or corporations, which is interesting because there's really no employee rights in the state, but magically create a cause of action here. I think this is actually going to pass. What I'm looking for this year is, locally I'm looking at redistricting. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this governor's got a lot of money to spend. He's spending on a lot of pet projects. He's got an election crimes unit that he's looking for $5.7 billion to fund, the stolen election motif.
But let me just jump in.
Yeah.
There were no election crimes in Florida.
Exactly.
Every supervisor of elections around the state, both Democrats and Republicans, they take a lot of issue with this. They stand by the running of their county elections systems. They say it was a completely successful, clean election.
Yeah, I think this is a dodge of the continuing claims of Donald Trump and others that there needs to be an audit of elections. Basically, we've got a crimes unit look at this. I don't know exactly what this crimes unit will accomplish when and if it comes to pass. He's also got a state guard that he wants to set up, $5.4 million. Basically, his own version of the National Guard is under his control. It's theoretically intended to supplement the National Guard in situations of crisis. Critics such as Nikki Fried have said that he's trying to create his own private army. He also wants a 25-cent state gas tax cut. That's something that corporate gas stations have agreed. They're willing to cut their prices also. We'll see if the independent operators don't suffer because of this. He also wants more bonuses for cops and teachers, $5,000 to recruit cops from other states. Critics have said he's trying to recruit unvaccinated cops. He's rejected that. $1,000 bonuses for teachers, first responders. So it's that kind of election year budget. You got some red meat items, be some tweaks around sanctuary cities and E-Verify. He also wants to spend money, I think it's $8 million, to potentially relocate undocumented immigrants who are brought to Florida to Delaware and other states. And that's an interesting proposal, and we'll see what comes of that.
We're speaking with our Jacksonville Today contributors, A.G. Gankarski, Bill Delaney, Nikisha Williams, and yours truly. By the way, you can subscribe to jaxtoday.org just by entering your email at the address. We're really excited about this new vertical here at WJCT Public Media. It's 549-2937. People, I think, haven't realized we're back on the air, but people on Twitter are following along. Lots of tweets coming into the show. Here is one from a listener when I mentioned that people are tired of COVID-19. Nikisha, I think I mentioned that at the top of the hour. They said, Roger said, people may be tired of the virus, but people have died because policymakers and individuals politicized a health crisis. That's why we are here. When you look at vaccination and death rates in Florida, Nikisha, we do have, as AG said, about a 65% vaccination rate, but we have had higher death rates in this state than we should, given that we are a little bit ahead of the pack on vaccinations. And with this new variant coming in, ERs, doctors and nurses in local hospitals, they really have asked us to kick off 2022 with reminding folks to be mindful. And so without scaring people, without beating people over the head, we do have to be mindful. I don't know how else to say it.
We absolutely have to be mindful. I think it quickens my heart to see that, Florida is ahead of the pack when it comes to having the state vaccinated. We always heard, 70% vaccination rate was the magical number to reach herd immunity for all of those who could not get vaccinated for whatever underlying health conditions or won't get vaccinated for whatever reason. And so we're not far from that number. But, Florida has always been as referred to as, a retiree state. So we have a lot of older citizens who live across our state and who are more susceptible to COVID-19 because of their age. And so it's not about beating people over the head of what they did or didn't do, what they will or won't do. It's really about, as I said at the beginning, about keeping yourself and the people around you and the people you love safe. This virus does not discriminate. It kills. It kills children. It kills the elderly. It kills those who are supposedly in the prime of their life. It kills those who are in middle age. It doesn't discriminate. And so in working to keep yourself safe and to keep your family safe, if that means wearing a mask, put on a mask. If that means getting vaccinated, get vaccinated. If that means getting a booster shot, get a booster shot, so that everyone who can do something to protect themselves and those they love does so that we're not 2, 3, 4 weeks later and someone's in the hospital and it's the last time to say goodbye, and we see all these stories about, I wish I would have done this differently, or I wish I would have done this differently. If you're proactive now, you don't have to wish you did something differently because you've protected yourself and your family and those you love. And it's really that simple. It's about protecting the ones you love and protecting yourself. I don't know how else to explain that.
Here's a tweet from a listener. There is a COVID-free testing site in the Avenues Mall parking lot. Sign up online for an appointment at clinic.org. No lines are waiting. Most results in 48 hours. Thanks for that. Okay, Bill Delaney of the Jackson Mag, I have an idea. Let's talk about recycling and some other urban news, because obviously people don't want to talk about the virus on the phone lines. But you know what, Bill? Whenever we talk about the lack of curbside recycling in this town, people tend to call in. They're still very upset about this. 549-2937, as you report at the Jackson Mag, and others have reported, pressure really is on city officials to resume curbside recycling this year. Now, Bill, they say it's a matter of when, not if. But after months of being without it and increasingly angry anecdotal reports that the stuff people are dropping off at these recycling sites around town, that it's not getting recycled, how urgent a matter do you think this is for the city?
I would say it's a pretty urgent matter, considering this is one of those services that people pay for. They're still paying for, even though they're not getting, and there's still not a timetable for when it's going to come back. I think increasingly people are seeing it as a failure of leadership on the city's part. Because you're right. I mean, like, I've taken my recycling out to the drop-off point over in 5 Points. Every single time I've gone there, the bins are overflowing.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And it's not like people aren't coming out there to empty them. It's just there's so much more recycling than what they're able to get. It's it's pretty disheartening. A lot of people have just decided, well, if I'm going to have to do all this work and it may not get recycled anyway, I'm just going to put it out with the trash, which means, for the one thing, that it's not going to get recycled, but for the other thing, it's more work for the city garbage collectors.
Absolutely. And City Council member Matt Carlucci says he's going to have a public meeting about this sometime this month and some town hall meetings. Of course, AG Gankarski Carlucci dropped out of the mayor's race. How do you see mayoral and city council candidates making hay out of this issue?
Well, I think the most logical race this is going to impact is the at-large runoff between Democrat Tracy Polston, Republican Nick Howland. I mean, Polston's running against the Lenny Curry machine, as it were. This is a pretty easy point to criticize. You can say that, this administration's done this, and this, and this. They got a 4 seasons plan. They tried to push Lot J. They tried to do this, that, and the other. But when it comes to recycling, it's still sitting, at the curb or at the park or what have you. And that's really the thing. Carlucci is going to make some noise. He's running at large, again for re-election. He's got a lot of momentum for that. But I think really it's going to play into the at-large race. I think Lenny Curry and his team have to come up with a fix. I don't know what that fix is, but this has been an optical disaster for the administration.
549-2937. And here come the calls. Sten on the south side. Hi, Sten. Good morning. Go ahead. Happy New Year.
Good morning. If people are upset about the way the city's being run, they need to vote in the city elections, and they don't. We have an election coming up, I think, in February, even before the larger election.
That's right.
People need to pay attention to how the city is run. We have a choice in February. People need to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Sten. You're preaching to the choir with this crowd. Bill Delaney, there is a special election coming up, as AG mentioned, to replace the late Tommy Hazouri, a city council at-large seat. All you have to do to find out your polling place and the date is go to DuvalElections.com. And Bill, whoever gets this job, whoever succeeds Hazouri, they're going to be looking at curbside recycling, but also a lot of the other urban issues you write about at the Jackson. Downtown development, the Emerald Trail, that big project that is envisioned as a green belt that will go all around the urban core neighborhoods, and a lot of other initiatives.
Yeah, there's a lot going on downtown. That's something that Yashad Khan got a lot of flack recently for saying that that downtown has gone downhill in the 10 years that he's owned the Jaguars. And I think you can kind of pick and choose the evidence of which way it's really going. There clearly have been a lot of setbacks, but there's also a lot that is happening that the only way forward is forward. One huge thing, it doesn't get a lot of press, is that right now there are over a dozen major projects happening within 3 blocks of James Weldon Johnson Park alone. Almost all of them involve adapting existing buildings, mostly historic buildings. It's things like the Independent Life Center, Ambassador Hotel, Old Federal Reserve Bank, the new JEA headquarters that's going up. That's something that individually they're not as sexy as like a Lot J or Shipyards project, but all together they're going to, being in such a cluster within a quarter mile, easy walking distance to each other, all together they're going to have a much bigger impact than any of that stuff could on its own.
Right. Not to mention plans to finally maybe develop the downtown riverfront. Nikisha Williams, could this be the year something actually happens with that? Not that I'm cynical or anything.
I
don't know.
You are, but I think I am. Who knows? I mean, every year we've gotten these great renderings and all these plans, and the Jags do their big spiel about what they want to do for downtown, the Four Seasons, the multi-use development, the shopping, all of the things, the entertainment district. If we see it, that's great. I would love to see it. I would love to go visit. I'd love to take my kids. I'd love to see it. However, I agree with AG that if we focus on the urban core and the 3 blocks, 3 square miles of downtown and those blocks around James Weldon Johnson Park and some of the adaptive use buildings that are already reshaping the buildings that are already there, that would give, townhouses or condos or a grocery store or more restaurants or small retail shops and things like that, I think that will have a bigger impact, because going downtown to a Lot J or to an entertainment district or to whatever the plan for the Shipyards thing is, that's going to be like an event for families. That's not going to be something that families participate in every day. But what you want is people that live downtown, who work downtown, who make their life around that area, not some people who just journey downtown for the entertainment and then journey back to the excerpt. So I would love to see whatever the Jags and Shad Khan have planned for Lot J actually come to fruition, have a groundbreaking ceremony, and then begin to see cranes in the sky so that we can see these wonderful ideas that we've seen renderings of for like the last, 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But as AG has said, the more concentrated and the more impactful will be on making downtown an area where people can not just play, but can also live and work. And that requires a lot of things that just aren't being talked about right now.
Linda in Mandarin is on the line. Hi, Linda. Happy New Year. Go ahead.
Happy New Year. I just want to say that a medium city does the basics, which is city services. I've gone to the recycling locations, it's overflowing, and people also are putting trash in where there should be recyclables. Why not have an education campaign to say these things need to be recycled? I mean, the mayor, whatever, he's going to, political campaigns. I know he has a little bit of time. He needs to focus here. And as for Mr. Khan, the only thing that's gone down the last 10 years since Shad Khan has been here is the Jaguar.
Yeah, you know what? And we're going to get to that later in the hour, Linda. I promise you that. Our own Josh Torres has a lot to say on that front. So thank you, Linda. We're almost out of time. A.G. Gankarski, what else is on your radar?
Well, I mentioned this before, redistricting of the Florida House. You're going to see some shakeups. Your South Side, a House district's going to be shaken up. You might see a House District 12 that goes across the river. There might be changes in the beach districts in Nassau, the Cord Bird District, HD 11. So watch that over the next weeks and months because you're going to find out who your House candidates are in a few months for real.
A.G. Gankarski, Nikisha Williams, and Bill Delaney, 3 valued contributors to this show. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, everyone. And much more still ahead later. As I mentioned, Josh Torres on the Jaguars' woes and the fan revolt. That's coming up. But first,
this report came about in the broader context of what we're seeing in our democracy in the aftermath of the 2020 election, and especially this widespread belief about the 2020 election.
Fighting the big lie and securing our election systems against insider threats. That's next. We'll be right back. Well, elections officials across the country have been under attack as they worked to tabulate votes during a pandemic, while they also fended off efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. And in this climate of intimidation and violence, some of them are leaving the job. And here's the problem. In some of those instances, the open positions they're leaving vacant are being sought by people who support the big lie. The lie that the 2020 election was somehow stolen. They're conspiracy theorists seeking to administer elections operations. Election security experts Lawrence Norden and Derek Tisler from the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU Law published a new paper on this. And it looks at the danger posed by elections officials who believe in the big lie. Addressing insider threats in elections also provides steps for local, state, and federal government to secure our election systems against insider threats. I spoke with Derek Tisler about this just before the new year. Here's that conversation. Hi, Derek. Good to be with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
I don't think there's a bigger story in the world than talking about free and fair elections in this country and how to protect our democracy. Now, you and the other election security experts at the Brennan Center have come out with some recommendations for how to protect our local, state, and federal elections. How did this report come about? It's called Addressing Insider Threats in Elections.
Yeah, so this report came about in the broader context of what we're seeing in our democracy in the aftermath of the 2020 election, and especially this the sort of widespread belief, polls showing nearly a third of all Americans kind of buy into these false narratives about the 2020 election, that it was rigged, that you couldn't trust the vote count, or whatever it may be. And we started looking at that in the context of election administration, and especially because elections in America rely on tens of thousands of people working in election offices, volunteers, working with private companies that support election administration. And although by and large that group of people are dedicated public servants who care about their job, it's unavoidable that in a world where, a third of all Americans believe that the 2020 election was rigged, some of those people involved in election administration would also buy into those ideas. And then it really heightened with the fact that we actually saw some events take place across the country this year where election officials or other government officials actually facilitated unauthorized access to voting equipment or to election systems in order to sort of fuel these conspiracies about election administration. And so while this sort of threat of an insider risk or unauthorized access isn't necessarily new, it's so much more than a theoretical possibility now.
Yeah, so you've come up with some safeguards, some recommendations. Let's go through these, beginning with monitoring for inappropriate activity and establishing transparent procedures. Elections officials would say they're already doing that, but what would you recommend be changed?
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of election officials who are doing a really great job with this, which is great, both because it's promising to see those procedures in place, those procedures working, but also because they provide a roadmap to some of the election offices who may not have thought about this as clearly or haven't had the resources to be able to set up some of these safeguards. So we recommend broadly restricting access to, election systems, voting machines, databases, to only people who need to access those systems to do their jobs, and only those people after they've passed the background check to sort of be certain that they're prepared to access that sensitive equipment. We recommend making sure that certain functions are conducted under the supervision of the election official or in two-person teams, so that there's someone always checking each other when they're testing voting equipment, when they're collecting and counting ballots, other sort of critical election functions. And then we also really recommend creating records and logs of access, especially through sort of key card systems or through video surveillance. And just as importantly, really monitoring those records and making sure that, these records aren't actually important if nobody is sort of reviewing them, making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing within election administration work.
And there's more in your report. You call for prosecuting officials who don't follow ethical procedures, working with vendors that provide the election equipment. A lot of this would be covered, as you argue, if the Senate and the House could finally pass the Freedom to Vote Act. That is going to be a big push from the Biden White House in the new year. And so all of these recommendations are great, but if the filibuster can't be carved out for voting rights and the Democrats are not able to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, none of these recommendations will have teeth. What are your thoughts at the Brennan Center about that legislation and its potential fate?
Well, we strongly support the Freedom to Vote Act. We're encouraged by the movement that we're seeing on it. And as you point out, it will certainly be helpful in addressing these insider risks, especially with establishing sort of stronger cybersecurity standards for vendors who work in the election space. But even outside of that, we think the recommendations that we're encouraging election officials to consider to address insider threat risks are things that they can do right now. And there are also things that state legislatures can act on, and especially provide resources to local election officials to, fund the technology for things like surveillance, for key card access systems, for other sort of processes to monitor access. A lot of that can be done right now. And again, a lot of election officials are really doing great things on this right now.
There's more in the report from the Brennan Center. It's called Addressing Insider Threats in Elections. Derek Tisler, election security expert with the Brennan Center. It's good to get your insights on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, big changes are coming this year to our valued partner, the Jacksonville Daily Record. Here to tell us more in studio, we welcome editor Karen Mathis. Always great to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And new publisher at the Daily Record, Angie Campbell. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having us.
It's great to have you both in studio. Our first in-studio guests in a long time, actually. Let's begin with you, Angie, and congratulations. You are the newly minted publisher of the Jacksonville Daily Record. Kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. We're really excited of what is to come in 2022 and beyond.
Let's talk about that. You have a lot happening at the Daily Record. I can't recommend checking out their digital content enough, but you have some structural changes that you want to share with us as well, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, starting Thursday, we will be a weekly only in print, but of course a very hefty daily online content provider. And we will be the Jacksonville Daily Record. We are weekly, but we are retaining our brand name because it means so much. And we have been in business. I was speaking with Angie for 110 years now in Jacksonville.
Yes.
And so we're going to continue building on the brand of the Jacksonville Daily Record. We will be a lot bigger and we will have more content and more special features. So we're really looking forward to what we can provide the community.
That's right. And of course, Karen, as editor, you do an amazing job leading this coverage. Angie, as Karen mentioned, the Daily Record has an incredibly deep history in the city. One of the reasons you no longer need to publish every day in print is because of a move made in Tallahassee, in the legislature. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So the legislature had made changes to the public notice law. The Daily Record has always been focused on business and legal news and publishing of public notice, letting the community know what is happening on the law side. And some of those changes include, one, that a publication no longer has to become daily in order to publish, and opens up free market. But it also really sets guidelines for who should be publishing public notice, where people can find that information, and make that readily available to the public. So you have to ensure that a certain number of audience members are seeing those notices. And secondly, allowing
just open access to these kinds of notices. And we're talking mainly notices that affect the business and legal community of the city.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, Karen, these notices have been really at the heart of what your publication has been doing for over a century. But what's exciting is that in recent years, under your leadership, you've beefed up the coverage of news affecting downtown in particular, but not only downtown, but business growth, new construction. You, more than I think any other journalist in town, you really lead in these kinds of stories. And so tell us a little bit about your goals for 2022.
Well, this area is booming. You can't go anywhere
in Jacksonville and in the 5 counties, because we cover the 5 counties. You can't go anywhere without seeing new housing developments, new apartments specifically. And this is continuing because as more people move to Florida and moved to Jacksonville, we're going to see more and more of that. And we talk a lot in our newsroom that we really need to make sure we cover all of this, because as the entire news industry is changing structurally, more people are needed to provide the content and the reporting. And that's what we do day in and day out. It's business news. And we're going to continue doing that. I've been doing that in Jacksonville for a long time. And if I tried to think back on all the changes that I've seen, I could probably write a book or two. But the city continues to grow, and it really needs our attention. It needs the attention of the reporters in this town. And that's what we're going to continue to do. There are some great features. There are some fascinating companies out there. The issues are incredible, what this city is facing and what needs to be covered. And we talk about the legal notices and the public notices. The number of stories that we find in the public notices is fascinating as well. So I encourage people to read the public notices in our publication.
If you want to know what's happening in your neighborhood, that's where it's happening.
Yeah, and people can read them online, or they can pick up the Daily Record for free every Thursday. Now, is that right?
That's correct. We have over 100 locations throughout Northeast Florida currently where you can pick up a free copy. Of course, we will be happy to mail that copy to you with a paid subscription, currently just $49. Right now, we're also offering a half off. So get it while it's hot. Let it come directly to you. You don't have to go out and search for it. But then, of course, yes, online every day, jacksdailyrecord.com.
And we don't have a paywall, unlike a lot of other publications have been have elected and been forced to do. We do not have a paywall. Our information is there for you. And you can pick us up free at the racks in town. So that is free as well. We want people to have access to the news that we produce.
Yes.
We think people deserve to know what's going on, and I don't think anybody would argue with that in the media. But I think the more access you have to the news, the better a citizen you're going to be, the better business person you're going to be, the better competitor you're going to be.
We're pleased to share some of the content at the Jax Daily Record at our news website at wjct.org as well. And I know for a fact that you, Karen Bruni Mathis, make your rounds every morning, checking on the public notices, being the first to find out who's buying, who's selling, who's building, who's moving. And so you are a must read, I think, for anyone who follows the business community and the legal community in this city. So I want to thank you for all of your contributions to all of us here. And thank you for stopping by as we kick off the new year. Editor Karen Mathis and new publisher Angie Campbell at the Jacksonville Daily Record, jacksdailyrecord.com. Thanks so much, ladies.
Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. In a moment, you know who's not so happy right now? Jaguars fans. Our Josh Torres is one of them, and he'll tell us why next.
Lee & Kate's Glass, family owned and operated for 95 years. Lee & Kate's Glass is your source for upgrading your home's glass, from shower doors and mirrors to windows and tabletops. Learn more at leeandkatesglass.com. Congaree & Pin Landscape Trees, now specializing in landscape and architectural lighting. More info and appointments available at congareetrees.com or 527-1945.
Traditional Greek culture is preserved in Tarpon Springs. I'm Ben Brotmarkle, and coming up on Florida Frontiers, the weekly radio magazine of the Florida Historical Society, will discuss the unique Epiphany celebration that begins each year there. Commentator Connie Lester reflects on the passage of time and will discuss New Deal public works projects in Florida. That's Florida Frontiers, Monday evening at 6:30 on WJCT News 89.9.
On the next Fresh Air, our guest will be Kirsten Dunst. She's one of the stars of the new film The Power of the Dog, which was directed by Jane Campion. The film is on many critics' 10 best lists, including our film critic's Justin Chang. Dunst's husband in the film is played by her real husband, Jesse Plemons. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
The new year brings with it some old challenges. As COVID cases surge, new treatments and more shots could see 2022 as the year we start to put the pandemic in the rearview mirror. I'm Jen White. As the country gets back to work, our series Vaccination Nation returns. It's your chance to put your questions to those in the know. That's ahead on the next 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, the Jaguars lost badly to the Patriots on Sunday, and fans are getting louder in their calls for team owner Shad Khan to fire team GM Trent Baalke. Have you seen all those clown emojis people are putting on their social media? Well, our show director and sports analyst Josh Torres is right in the thick of all this, and he has some thoughts. It's actually a bit of a rant, Josh. I think you're ready to lay on all of us, right?
Oh, yes, Melissa. This has just been... It's been a hard 3 weeks. I mean, 3 weeks ago, obviously, we had Urban Meyer finally get fired, as he probably should have been long before that. But he was finally fired. Fans were excited again. They thought, okay, let's see what this team can do. Because it was really going to show, okay, was it just Urban Meyer or is there a deeper issue here? And it's been very, very abundantly clear in the last 3 weeks that there is a much, much deeper issue. 0-3 since Urban Meyer was fired. The team does not look like they're progressing any closer to being a competent NFL team. Currently, they lead the league. The receiving core leads the league in dropped passes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're dropping passes that any NFL level receiver should have. And, you know, I really do believe that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I mean, he's not developing, and part of that is down to the coaching, down to the fact that his receivers aren't catching his passes, and so he's trying to adapt in a way where he's trying to help them and find a way to get them just to have their hands on the ball, and it's just so bad to see him struggling so much and really not getting any help whatsoever. And with last Monday, them announcing that they were going to possibly retain Trent Baalke. This is the guy who hired Urban Meyer, who told him, hey, you know what? I think it's okay that you're staying in Ohio after we just lost to the Bengals. And then obviously the infamous video of him at the bar with the woman who was not his wife came out right after that. This is a guy who kept him through all this time till finally Shad Khan had to step in and say, no, we're done. This has gotten way too far. He's got to go.
Okay, so now the fans are basically in open revolt, screaming for Baalke's head.
Yes.
They're changing their social media pictures to an image of a clown with a mustache as a way to dunk on Shad Khan. By the way, have you done that?
I have not. First and foremost, I am an analyst, a reporter. I have to keep myself, but that does not mean I don't disagree with what they're doing. I mean, the fans are finally fed up. They're finally fed up with Shad Khan constantly saying, I think we're right around the corner from turning this around, when they don't see that. They see them wanting to keep a GM who is 3 and now 31 since he started in that interim GM role before being elevated to the full-time GM. And they feel like this is just going to continue to hinder him because he's just not. This is a guy who, honestly, from what I hear from NFL sources, is that he does not have any respect among NFL GMs. Who's going to want to trade with him? Who's going to want to sign here if they see this guy who is giving jobs to people who, in all honesty, probably shouldn't be in the NFL? And I know they're trying to just live out their dreams, but when you have receivers who can't even run the correct routes, I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know, especially with the Jags, with how much cap space they're going to have this offseason. If you're going to trust that Trent Baalke is going to somehow attract all these big names, I just don't see it happening.
Don't see it happening. Well, as Baalke's fate hangs in the balance, the team is now about to begin their search officially for a new head coach. Who are they looking at?
They actually, Melissa, started last week. A new NFL rule allows for teams that have already said that their coach was not returning or have fired their head coach to start with in the last 2 weeks of the season. They could actually begin to send out those requests. There's a lot of names out there. So far, they've actually interviewed former Eagles head coach and Super Bowl champion Doug Peterson. They also were looking at former Detroit Lions head coach Jim Caldwell. They were looking at Byron Leftwich and Dallas defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. Both of them have declined that interview right now. That doesn't mean that at a later date they might not want to still interview for that job. They're also looking at Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And there are just a lot of names out there, but really it's a wait and see who is really going to be interested in this job, especially with the fate of the
are they
GM.
going to have any good takers? Honestly, I think you have to ask that. Okay, the Jaguars back at home this week for their final game of the season. You're going to be there, of course, in the press box, suffering through the last home game.
Yes, we will be up there. All of the media will be up there, and myself and producer Heather Schatz made a joke saying that the Jags might want to offer all of us one free therapy session for having to kind of sit through all this and we're all a little bit fed up with this, but I really don't expect much from this last game. And if they do end up losing it, like a lot of people are expecting them to, they will have the number 1 overall pick yet again.
Yet again. Not that really helped them that much this season.
No, it did not.
No, it did not. Okay. Well, always great to get your insights. Follow Josh on Twitter at Josh is a Polar Bear. And thanks. Happy New Year, Josh.
Happy New Year, everybody. And one little quick thing. If you want to see a team that is winning, go see the Jacksonville Icemen, winners of their 10 of their last 11 games.
Hey, we do have a winning team in this town. How
Yes, we
about
do. Yes, we do. The Icemen are red hot right now, so go and check them out if you really want to see a Jacksonville team that is winning.
Check it out, everybody. And thanks for listening to our first show of 2022. I'm Melissa Ross, and we'll be right back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Join us then. Have a great Monday.